This is Desaliny. Just a quick video to tie in with Pitchfork and their kind of current 90s season that they're running. Yesterday they dropped their 250 songs of the 1990s list. Yeah, this whole feature of this has been kind of months in the making, and the fact that they've gone and done 250 songs suggests, yeah, they're trying to make this kind of as all-encompassing as they can. So yeah, this video will just be my kind of initial response to that. I mean, top line message, for the most part, it's a really, really interesting read. And as usual with Pitchfork, they're covering everything from hip hop and R&B to the indie and alternative side to, you know, just the pop music, kind of a big look at the whole kind of 90s music cultural phenomenon. So yeah, I just had a look through that, and these are just some of my kind of initial thoughts. As I say, on the whole, it's a really good, interesting read, and I'd recommend you have a look. I'll probably kind of put a link to it somewhere. But yeah, so here are some of my initial thoughts. It's a big list. And as a consequence, you do see multiple songs from the same artist. I'd question whether that's completely necessary. I think in some cases it is. So artists like Massive Attack and Nirvana and Bjork, I think having kind of a couple of songs from them in there does kind of show maybe their development, kind of the change, the progression of themselves as artists or as of tastes through the 90s. There is a few other examples where I think maybe was that really necessary? There are 2 tracks from Hole. There are 2 Sonic Youth tracks, both of them off the Goo album. There are 3, I believe, Janet Jackson tracks. Yeah, you could argue for and against those, but I think certainly in the case of things like Hole and Sonic Youth and Janet Jackson, maybe a single or 2 tracks would have been enough. So yeah, there's quite a heavy kind of pop element to this 250 songs. Some of the horrors would include Four Non Blondes, What's Up. Yeah, this is a song I've always hated. It's become more of a meme than anything. So I guess that's why it's in for that kind of significance. But as a piece of music, I'd be quite happy if I never heard it ever again. There's also some other kind of pop music biggies of that period, which I can quite happily take or leave. Celine Dion, Shania Twain. Yeah, they had their place, but I don't know whether they changed the kind of the face of the decade. But yeah, pop songs. I mean, there are some in here that I kind of quite rate. I still have a soft spot for Madonna's Ray of Light. En Vogue, yeah, they had some good hits. Even Sheryl Crow, they've chosen the song If It Makes You Happy. I always loved that as a song. I just saw a lot of potential in that for like reinterpretation. I mean, can you imagine Alan and Mimi from Low having a go at If It Makes You Happy? Yeah, I would pay good money to hear that. Yeah, I don't want to get too nitpicky on the list. So I'm not going to be kind of giving you huge reams of, oh, I'd have had this one over that one. But there are a couple of songs that I probably would substitute. They've chosen from Teenage Fan Club, The Concept. I would take Everything Flows every day of the week. It's their first single from their first album, Catholic Education. And I just think it's one of the greatest songs of the decade. Yeah, whatever you think about the, significance of certain albums and certain bands' kind of profiles at certain times, a really good song has got to trump everything. And for me, Everything Flows is just genius. They do feature both Daft Punk and Stardust, so they're essentially the same artists. And they went with Around the World and Music Sounds Better With You. That's fine, but they do kind of both show the same side of Daft Punk as they would develop and become what they were. For me, I would love to home in on a track off the album Homework, off their debut album Homework, and that's Rollin' and Scratchin', which may not be so representative of Daft Punk as they were, but was very representative of dance music of the 90s. It's just this raucous techno club, just stomper. It is an amazing track, even now. They also went for Welcome to the Terror Dome by Public Enemy, off their Fear of a Black Planet album. It's a great track, but I think if you're looking at Public Enemy during the 90s, Fear of a Black Planet was 1990, so they did change as they got towards the middle part of the decade. For me, I'd choose by the time I get to Arizona from Apocalypse 91. It's got a great video. It's pretty controversial at the time. It drew flack from both sides, including, some of Martin Luther King's surviving relatives, because they didn't like the violence that was portrayed in the video. Chuck has been very defensive of it all the way through. The fact that MTV banned it after about one play. I think this kind of shows the direction Public Enemy were heading in sonically, and just that they were kind of committed to what they were doing. Some omissions or some tracks that I think maybe could have snuck in there, possibly at the expense of some of those kind of two from an artist kind of examples that I gave earlier. Red Right Hand by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. This is interesting because it kind of ties in with what's going on currently with the whole kind of Kate Bush, Stranger Things tie-in. We seem to have got to a position where you can now use a movie to promote music, whereas in the 90s, I believe, movies were trying to get cool artists and cool bands to promote their film. We seem to kind of flip the logic there somehow. There's an interesting feature in The Guardian earlier this week talking about streaming and music and how we listen to it. And that's got some interesting bits in there which kind of relate to this. Yeah, and Red Right Hand featured very prominently in some big things in the 90s. It was a big part of the X-Files. It was in that kind of X-Files kind of the X-Files companion album. I think it was called something like Songs in the Key of X or Sounds in the Key of X. I forget exactly. It also featured prominently in the Scream trilogy of films, and more recently it's been in films and TV series subsequently. Most recently it's featured very heavily in Peaky Blinders, the TV series. So yeah, I think in terms of the 90s, if you're thinking of the 90s as a decade and just looking at a song and its kind of cultural reach, then yeah, Red Right Hand is one that I think could have gone in. I noticed that Jawbox's Savory made it in to the 250. A great choice, a great kind of post-hardcore DC band. It just made me think, I'd love to see Shudder to Think in here. I'd love to see X-French T-shirt. So that's one I wish was in the list. So yeah, among those kind of duplicate artists like Sonic Youth, there's also, two from Pavement, two from Blur, two from the Smashing Pumpkins. Yeah, I think there are possibly one or two artists that they could have put in there that kind of deserved a shout. They did get in there with Slack Motherfucker by Superchunk, which is a great single. One I would have loved to see would be Harnessed in Slums by The Archers of Loaf. Yeah, a really great single. Really captured that kind of lo-fi, slacker kind of attitude of that kind of grunge, post-grunge period. And one last one. There was a big kind of thing in the 90s of bands getting hits off the back of featuring in adverts. Things like Babylon Zoo and Stiltskin featured heavily in kind of Levi's ads and released as singles, which then went on to be quite successful. They tended to kind of fall into this one-hit wonder category though. But there is one song and one band who I think kind of rose well above that. The song would be The First Big Weekend by Arab Strap, which was featured heavily in a Guinness advert on TV, certainly in the UK. Yeah, it's a really great song, and it really captures a time when kind of Scottish culture was very to the fore, Irvine Welsh, Train Spotting. I think it's a really good, really distinctive song, and it really sums up a certain kind of attitude at a certain time of the 90s. Yeah, anyway, as I say, it's a good list and it's a good read, and yeah, it makes you think. There's plenty more content coming from Pitchfork throughout the whole of this 90s season they're running. I believe they're dropping a list of albums today, and I think they may be doing some genre specific lists as well, which kind of may alleviate some of my issues with, you know, certain pop artists kind of taking a lot of the space of this 250 songs. But anyway, yeah, that's it. Quick video, just a few thoughts on that. Come back soon, see what else I'm talking about here. Bye for now.